Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. So, today's video is going to be a little bit different. I did a video, or the same video, a little while back, and you all seemed to enjoy it, and I enjoyed making it. Before we go any further, I just want to make a couple of announcements. If you, wherever you may live, it doesn't matter what country or what state, if you have an urban myth around where you live, please get in contact with me. I would love to hear those stories and feature that urban myth in a video. You will also get a shout out in the video as well. Also, if you have had any sort of ghost encounter, an alien encounter, being stalked, or had a really creepy encounter, things of that nature, please reach out to me. I would love to do a viewer's video telling your true story if it's not traumatic. Please reach out to me via comments, or you can send those stories over to phoenixfirenarrations@gmail.com. You will get a shout out in the video and I will tell your story. Also remember, down in the description box below, if you are enjoying what you're hearing, please feel free to buy me a coffee, as it does help out me and the channel. Thank you so much. Now, it is time to go back to ashes. For when we arise from the ashes, we are bigger, brighter, stronger person in the morning. Lay back, get comfortable, or tuck in and get warm, and prepare for your nightly dose of vocal melatonin, entitled Creepy Urban Myths from all 50 states, here in the US. Alabama, Dead Children's Playground, and Hell's Gate Bridge. In Huntsville, Alabama's Maple Hill Cemetery is a playground. Why there is a playground in a cemetery is beyond us. That will give visitors the heebie-jeebies. Here, swings swing on their own, and people have photographed and reported orbs and ghostly figures. The cemetery was founded in 1822, and legend has it, the spirits of the children entombed here come out to play. There's a YouTube video that shows a young girl swinging alongside empty swings that are also swinging. It's completely bone-chilling, even if they rigged the swings. The generally accepted story of Hell's Gate Bridge starts in the 1950s. A young couple driving over the bridge somehow drove their car off the bridge one night, and they both drowned. There are two legends associated with Hell's Gate Bridge. One, that if you drive your car out to the middle of the bridge and turn off the lights, the couple will magically appear in your car and leave a wet spot on the seat. The other, which is how the bridge got its name, is the belief that if you drive over the bridge and look over your shoulder halfway through, the scenery behind you turns into a portal to hell engulfed in flames. Potentially to curb ghost hunters and bored teenagers, Hell's Gate Bridge is closed to cars, and it is in such disrepair that walking across it is strongly discouraged. Alaska, the Kushtaka of the Alaskan Triangle. Although the Bermuda Triangle gets more fame, Alaska has its own triangle. This vortex is filled with magnetic energy and objects, including airplanes, and people are known to vanish without a trace. In 1972, a plane carrying then U.S. House Majority Leader Hal Boggs went missing. Despite a month-long search involving 90 planes, combing 3,200 square miles, not a single remnant was found. Ever since then, more than 16,000 people have entered the vortex and never returned. The Tlingit tribe, who live in Juneau, have their own explanation for the high number of missing people. Evil spirits called the Kushtaka. The Kushtaka, or shapeshifters, half man, half otter, who lure women and children to the water with fake cries in order to steal their human spirits and drown them. Arizona, the ghosts of Slaughterhouse Canyon and skinwalkers. Who wouldn't be terrified of encountering a creature believed to be a human that can transform into a dog-like animal and move on all fours? The legend of skinwalkers comes from the Navajo people of Arizona. It is said these shapeshifters are medicine men who have been lured to the dark side and can travel as much as 200 miles a night, terrorizing anyone they encounter. The Navajos say that just talking about a skinwalker can bring its evil to your door, and skinwalkers have even been used as a defense in murder trials. The story of Slaughterhouse Canyon, also called the less frightening Luanus Canyon, takes place during the gold rush. During the 1800s, there was a family who lived down in the canyon. They were very poor, so the father would venture out into the canyon for food for his family. As you might have guessed, one day the father did not return, so his family slowly starved and descended into madness. The mother, unable to bear listening to her children's cries anymore, put on her wedding dress, murdered her children, and then threw them into a nearby river. The next day, she succumbed to starvation herself. The legend states that if you go down the Slaughterhouse Canyon at night, even now, you will hear the loud, anguished cries of the mother who lost her mind. Arkansas, the Boggy Creek Monster, and Highway 365. The highway between Conway and Pine Bluff, Arkansas, has many tales of hitchhiker hauntings. Most of the legends tell the tale of a teenage girl caught in the rain, cold and wet. It is said a man stopped to give her a ride, getting out of his car to put his coat around her. When he got her home, he went to open her car door, but she was gone. He went to the door and a woman answered. When he explained what happened, she said her daughter had died in an accident years ago, but hitchhikes home once a year. Whether the story involves a man, a woman, or a child, all have the same result: a passenger gone and a story of a ghost returning home annually. The Boggy Creek Monster of Fouke is Arkansas's version of Sasquatch. He's commonly accepted to be around 7 or 8 feet tall and covered in hair. Legend says that he roams the creeks of rural Arkansas. He was first spotted in 1834, when people reported seeing a wild man. People still claim to spot the Boggy Creek Monster today, and he has been the subject of 5 feature-length films, including 1972's The Legend of Boggy Creek. California, the Dark Watchers and the Charman. The Charman's origin story is gruesome. A father and son were both caught in a house fire and horribly burnt in 1948. After the fire, the son became so mentally unstable that he killed his father. When the police found the son, he was so unrecognizably burnt they didn't realize he was alive. So he ran away before they were able to arrest him for the murder of his father. The story goes that, ever since then, the Charman can be spotted wandering the woods surrounding Ojai, occasionally approaching tents of innocent campers, or pretending to be a hitchhiker and then attempting to attack them. 7-foot-tall phantoms wearing capes and wide-brimmed hats while carrying walking sticks can be found in central California's Santa Lucia Mountains. Writers, including acclaimed John Steinbeck and poet Robinson Jeffers, have even referred to the Dark Watchers, or Los Vigilantes Oscuros, who also appear in indigenous cave paintings. It is said the figures watch from the mountains, but if you attempt to get close, they will vanish into thin air. Colorado. I will be reading two versions of the same myth. The Legend of Riverdale Road. Riverdale Road is the site of not one, but 8 creepy stories, ranging from a hellgate to ghosts of slaves hanging from trees. The stretch of road is decidedly spooky. The creepiest story, though, is that of a phantom jogger. One day, there was a driver who hit a jogger, freaked out, and left him for dead. Now, it's said that if you park at the site of the crash, you'll hear disembodied footprints getting closer and closer to your car. People have reported handprints on their windows and banging noises as if someone was kicking the outside. Another stretch of road with its fair share of ghost stories is Thornton, Colorado's Riverdale Road, believed to have gates to hell. Along this road was the mansion of David Wolpert. Behind his iron gates, he went mad and murdered his family by burning the house to the ground. All that remains are the gates. But the road has more tales, like the ghost of a lady searching for her children, the ghost of a jogger that may chase you or hit your car, ghosts of slaves hanging from trees, a fast-moving Camaro ghost car with one headlight that may challenge you to a race, hitchhiker ghosts in need of a ride, and blood-red handprints on street signs. Connecticut, the Dudleytown Curse, and Hannah Cranagh. Known as the Wicked Witch of Monroe, Hannah Cranagh gained a reputation as a witch in the 19th century, when her husband died by mysteriously falling off a cliff, and locals reportedly believed that she had bewitched them. People also believed that she would cast spells on people she didn't like. Hannah lived to the age of 77, but right before she died, she asked to be carried down to the cemetery in her coffin by foot, not wagon. After her death, the people of Monroe tried to wheel her coffin down the hill, but were unable. The coffin kept falling off, so they were forced to carry it. When the townspeople returned to her home, it was found to be engulfed in flames, sealing Hannah's reputation of witchcraft. Now, you can visit her real grave in Trumbull. Connecticut's lost village, Dudleytown, is said to have been cursed so that anyone who tries to inhabit the former town will meet a gruesome demise. Found in northwestern Connecticut near Cornwall, the former village was named for Gideon Dudley in 1747. He and his 2 brothers settled the area and are said to have brought a family curse that dates back to 1510, England, when Edmund Dudley was involved in a plot to kill King Henry VIII. He was beheaded and a curse followed. Although the Dudleys cannot be traced back to Edmund Dudley, strange deaths and people going mad seemed common in the small village that eventually died out after the Civil War when the legend spread. Delaware, Corpse Light, and the Ghost of Mr. Chew. While not a particularly mean-spirited ghost, Samuel Chew's story is still disconcerting. Chew was the Chief Justice of the Delaware Supreme Court in 1741. As the story goes, while he was alive, he didn't always get the respect he deserved. People frequently made fun of his name by mimicking sneezes while he walked by. After his death, people reported seeing his ghost sitting under a popular tree, wandering the courthouse, and generally creeping out the residents of Dover. Chew would also pull on men's coattails and give women a cold, icy feeling. On Christmas Day in 1655, the Devonshiremen spotted the light from a lighthouse that lured it to the shore of Cape Henlopen. But there wasn't a lighthouse or any reason for the light that drew the ship, which landed on rocks and sunk, killing more than 200 people. A lighthouse was eventually added in 1769, where it later fell by erosion in 1926. Some claim to spot the original phantom light in the night, and legend has it that it shines for the sunken ghost ship in a painful reenactment. Florida. There are two versions of this legend. The gravity-defying Spook Hill. We all know how gravity works. Objects are pulled down, not up. But in Lake Wells, just north of Orlando, is a road that can pull your car up a hill. This magnetic hill is tested by drivers who will go to the hill, put their car in neutral, and watch as their cars moves up the hill instead of rolling down. Now on the National Register of Historic Places, Spook Hill is found on North Wells Drive, and the town has embraced its anomaly, welcoming you to test it for yourself. The phenomenon that happens at Spook Hill is real. Cars that are parked in neutral will appear to roll uphill. Legend says the hill is either the site of a Native American burial ground or an epic battle of a Native American chief against a crocodile. But the truth is, it's actually just an illusion created by the hill's surroundings. While cars appear to be rolling uphill, they are still just rolling downhill. Georgia. The ghost town of Lake Lanier and the statue that cries blood. Savannah's Bonaventure Cemetery receives thousands of visitors, many of whom have heard the tales of its numerous hauntings. One statue that lures paranormal investigators is that of Little Gracie. Born in 1883, Gracie Watson died when she was only 6 years old. Her heartbroken parents returned to New England, leaving the child alone in her afterlife, but not before having a sculpture of their beloved daughter made for her grave. Some report seeing the ghostly girl playing in nearby Johnson Square. Others, however, say if you remove any of the tokens left at her statue cries tears of blood. Taking flowers from a grave shouldn't require tears of blood to make it a no-no. At the bottom of Lake Lanier lies fully intact towns, ferries, a racetrack, and multiple cemeteries. The Georgia government, in its determination to create Lake Lanier, brought up entire towns in order to clear the space for the lake, after they received congressional approval in 1946. However, they just decided to let the water cover up the towns, rather than demolishing them. Now, Lake Lanier has a decidedly eerie feel about it. There have been an unusual number of freak accidents and deaths on the lake. In 2011, there were 17 deaths alone. Many of the people who drowned have been recovered. People have reported feeling arms and legs in the water, but have not been able to find them right after, leading people to believe that spirits still roam the lake. Hawaii. The Curse of Pele and Night Marchers. Night Marchers, according to Hawaiian lore, are not evil spirits, but they do demand respect. They are spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors who march around the islands to protect sacred areas. Legend says that if you look directly at a night marcher, you will be marked for death. And if by some chance you find yourself in the middle of a procession, you are supposed to lie down in the middle of the road. Those who grew up watching reruns of The Brady Bunch may recall the curse of Pele. Anyone who takes rocks or sand from the Hawaiian Islands is rumored to be cursed by the volcano goddess until return. To her, the rocks are her children. To the Bradys, it was a cursed idol, but islanders and visitors who have broken the rules swear by its curse. Park rangers say they've received stones returned by mail with letters from those who departed the islands with a piece of Pele, detailing all the things that went wrong since taking the rocks. The parks receive an average of 100 returned lava rocks monthly. In 2017 alone, 1,275 lava rocks were returned to Haleakala National Park. Besides angering a goddess, it is actually illegal to take rocks from the national parks. Idaho. The water babies of Massacre Rocks and Payette Lake Monster. Like Scotland's infamous Loch Ness Monster, Payette Lake in McCall, Idaho, has its own mysterious creature sightings. This serpent-like creature has been reported to be between 10 and 50 feet long. The locals call her Charlie, and she was first spotted in 1920. It's been 18 years since Charlie was last seen, and some say the ancient sea monster has died. Water babies are a Native American legend that are found in a couple of different places in America, but most famously in Pocatello at the Massacre Rocks State Park. The Shoshone tribe was first recorded in 1805 and were roaming the Great Plains as early as the 1500s, so it's not clear when exactly this legend originated. But the story goes that the Shoshone experienced an extreme famine, and mothers were forced to drown their babies in the river rather than watch their children starve. Today, some people claim that if you sit quietly at the river by Massacre Rocks, you'll hear the sound of babies crying. Other stories say that these babies grew gills and fins and survived, and now they seek revenge on their mothers by luring unsuspecting victims to their deaths in the river. Illinois. The Italian Bride and Homie the Clown. Throughout the suburbs of Chicago in the 90s, there was a rumor going around elementary schools. There was a creepy man dressed as Homie the Clown. Yes, the same one from In Living Color. Driving around in a white van, trying to lure kids into it with candy and money. In some variations, he was a kidnapper. In others, he liked to SA individuals. But in all variations, Homie left a mark on young Chicago kids in the 90s. In a cemetery found in Hillside, Illinois, outside of Chicago, is the grave not only of Al Capone, but also of Giulia Bucula Petta, who was born in Italy. At age 29, Giulia died during childbirth, making her a martyr, and she was buried in her white wedding dress. Her mother, however, was distraught over losing her daughter and began to have nightmares that her daughter had been buried alive. 6 years after her death, Giulia's grave was exhumed, and upon the opening of her casket, it was discovered Giulia's body had not decayed. She looked as she had in life, with skin just as soft. The coffin, however, had been rotting. Her mother took a photo of Giulia in her casket and raised funds for a more elaborate tomb depicting a life-size statue of the bride and showcasing a photo taken of Giulia in her coffin 6 years after she had passed, as well as her wedding photo that matched the statue. Indiana. Devil's Road and the 100 Steps Cemetery. The 100 Steps Cemetery is located in the town of Brazil, though the official address is actually disputed. While it's not clear when the stories about the cemetery being haunted began, there are gravestones that date back to the 1860s. The legend states that if someone finds themselves in the cemetery at midnight, they must climb the steps and count to 100. At this point, a ghost of an undertaker will appear and show the person a vision of their death. On the way back down, the visitor is supposed to count the steps again. If they count the same amount of steps, the vision was false. People who visited the cemetery in the past have tried to outsmart the supernatural forces in 100 steps by avoiding the steps altogether. They've reported being knocked or shoved to the ground by an unseen force. It was a tragic day for the school children riding on a bus in Jasper, Indiana, when their suicidal bus driver stopped the bus on the train tracks. The children watched in horror when a train came directly at them. Or, at least that is the story told around campfires. Legend has it, if you drive to tracks on Devil's Road and stop on the tracks, the spirit of the lost children will push your car off the tracks to save you. No train needed. Further evidence can be found if you dust the hood of your car in baby powder, where the handprints of the children will appear. There is actually no proof of such a train accident, but that doesn't stop those seeking a paranormal experience. Iowa, Villisca Axe Murder House, and the Black Angel. The Black Angel stands over 8 feet tall in Oakland Cemetery in Iowa City, and she is black due to oxidation. Most likely because of her dark appearance, multiple legends have cropped up around her. One legend says that a pregnant woman should never walk under her, or she'll lose the child. Others say that if you touch or kiss the statue, you'll be dead within 6 months. Whether haunted, cursed, or completely harmless, the statue is definitely a somber sight to see. In 1912, 8 people were murdered in the small town of Villisca, Iowa. J.B. Moore, his wife, and 6 children were killed with an axe in their sleep, a crime that has never been solved. The murders sent a shock throughout the town as residents began sealing up their homes and distrusting one another, trying to determine who could be capable of such an act. The crime scene revealed slabs of bacon left in odd places and doors that had all been locked from the inside, only adding to the mystery. Today, the house has been converted to look as it did in 1912 and is open for tours and overnights, with past guests reporting strange occurrences. Kansas, Stoll Cemetery and the Devil's Chair. The legend of the Devil's Chair goes like this. An old farmer in Alma refused to sell his land to the city in order to build a new cemetery. Someone got a little too worried of waiting for him to sell, so he was pushed into his own well. Eventually, someone said that there was a terrible smell coming from the well, so the city sent someone to investigate. It was ruled that the well was empty and it was boarded up. Now, if you make your way to Alma, you can actually sit on the boarded up well. But legend says that people who have sat on the well have been known to mysteriously disappear. This isn't an ordinary haunted cemetery, according to urban legend. This is one of the 7 gates to hell. Located outside Lawrence, Kansas, the cemetery used to be home to the remains of a burned down church. and is said to be home to the devil himself, who plays pranks every Halloween night. It is said noises have been caught on tape. A ghostly child wanders nearby woods, and additional otherworldly phenomena occur, drawing hundreds on All Hallows Eve to experience it themselves. The cemetery has been fenced off and receives daily patrol by the police for this very reason. Kentucky, Sleepy Hollow Road, and the Goat Man of Pope Lick. There's no clear consensus on how the Goat Man came to be. Some say he was a circus performer. Others say he was a farmer who tortured his goats for Satan, and in return was transformed into a hideous goat monster. However, everyone does agree on his appearance: dark fur, pale skin, goat legs, and horns. The monster is said to hide under the bridge at Pope Lick Creek in Louisville to lure people onto the train tracks, only to see them be hit by oncoming trains. Sadly, this urban legend has had some dangerous consequences. In 2016, an Ohio woman fell to her death from the bridge while looking for the Goat Man. Perhaps naming a road Sleepy Hollow outside of Louisville, Kentucky was a mistake. Many strange things have been reported to take place when you drive down this tree-lined, 2-lane road at night. One of the creepiest may be the black hearse spotted driving behind you, headlights on high beams, as it speeds up and gets closer and closer, causing you to speed up until it pulls up beside you and forces you off the road. At a portion of the road with a bridge, it is said you can hear the cries of a baby, as was the bridge where a mother tossed over her child she couldn't care for. Louisiana, the Devil's Toy Box, and the Grunch. Grunch Road is an old dirt road that leads deep into the woods and eventually to a dead end. It was a favorite place for teenagers to go and do whatever teenagers do, until they learned about the Grunch. The Grunch are rumored to be a group of deformed, half-human, half-monsters that resulted from years of isolation in the Louisiana bayous. In the present day, it's said that if you find yourself on Grunch Road, don't get out of your car if you see a goat who looks injured. The stories say that the Grunch uses goats to lure people out of their cars so they can eat them and drain their blood. So frightening is the legend of the one-room cabin in northern Louisiana that a movie was made about it. Inside, the room is made entirely of mirrors facing inward, including the floor and ceiling. It is said that, if you can find this cabin, enter it, and stand too long within its walls, you will either go crazy or the devil will come and take your soul. It's believed the cabin was built as part of a Halloween attraction for Farmer Graves' haunted orchard. But, alas, the attraction had to be shut down a week after opening because people who entered the Devil's Toy Box could not stand to be inside for more than 5 minutes, and many had to be hospitalized. Maine, the mysterious stain on Colonel Jonathan Buck's tomb, and Sabatis Well. Between Brunswick and Augusta, in the small town of Sabatis, where it is said that a group of teens stumbled upon an old well, the friends dared one to be lowered into the well, but when he was pulled back up, his hair had turned white and he had gone mad. The legend says he lives in a Maine mental institution and yells out the windows. No one knows what happened to him deep within Sabatis Well. The tomb of Colonel Jonathan Buck in Bucksport bears a mysterious leg-shaped stain. The story goes that Buck sentenced a woman to burn for witchcraft, and while she was burning, her leg rolled out of the fire. It's also been said that the witch cursed Buck's tomb to always bear a stain for this injustice. It is said that people have tried to get rid of the stain twice, but the stain keeps reappearing. Maryland, Chessie, the Chesapeake Bay Monster, and the Goat Man. Chessie sightings have been around since the 1930s, but really started to pick up steam in the 80s, when photographic evidence became more readily available. Chessie is said to resemble a snake, measuring around 30 feet long, and is the approximate thickness of a telephone pole. There haven't been any recorded attacks from Chessie, but a 30-foot-long snake does not sound like something most people would want to run into. As mythical as Bigfoot, Prince George County, Maryland, has its goat man to fear lurking in the woods. First reported in 1971, this man-beast is said to follow along Fletchertown Road near Bowie. Those who have seen him, including a family who says their beloved pooch was beheaded by Goatman, say it walks on 2 feet and stands 6 feet in height. There is a picture floating around social media for context if you would like to look that up. Massachusetts, homestead of Sheriff Corwin and the spirits of Hoosac Tunnel. In the 24-year-long construction of the Hoosac Tunnel in western Massachusetts, approximately 200 men died. Death was so associated with the tunnel that it was actually nicknamed the Bloody Pit. After a particularly gruesome explosion in either 1867 or 1868, 13 miners were trapped inside the tunnel. The other workers assumed that the miners had died, but eventually it was discovered the miners had lived, built a raft to combat flooding, and eventually died due to poisonous gas inhalation. It's said that these 13 miners haunted the tunnel for years, moaning and briefly appearing as ghosts. Salem, Massachusetts is filled with tales of witches, although they'll tell you they are not evil. Someone who is evil, however, was Sheriff George Corwin, who served during the Salem witch trials. Corwin was known to torture accused witches and has been held responsible for signing warrants for the arrests and execution of innocent people. It is said, when near his home, people feel the heavy weight of hands seemingly choking them. Michigan, Paulding Light, and the little girl on Knock Knock Road. The legend of Knock Knock Road says that there was a little girl who was murdered on Knock Knock Road in the Detroit area, and now she appears to drivers at their car window, knocking, trying to find the person who killed her. It is said that if you drive down Knock Knock Road between the hours of 12 and 3 a.m., you will see that little girl. Near the Upper Peninsula town of Sleepy Hollow is another ghostly light. Follow old US 45 to its end at a forest, and you'll see a clearing in the woods for the stretch of power lines running through it. There is nothing out this way, yet a mysterious light can be seen. People have reported this phenomenon since 1966, but no one knows what causes it. Some believe it is the ghost of a railroad brakeman who continues to haunt his old post. Minnesota, the Kensington Ruin Stone, and the pickup truck of Gray Cloud Island. Much of Minnesota's folklore revolves around its Native American culture. On Gray Cloud Island rests the biggest collection of Native American burial mounds in the country. The island is named for the Crow Creek Nation Gray Cloud, who was said to roam the island along with phantom coyotes. When trespassers appear on the sacred grounds, a driverless white pickup truck is said to chase them off the land. Maybe it is best to just leave the dead alone. In 1898, a Swedish-American farmer found a gigantic slab of rock on his farm that had symbols that appeared to be Norse. And since then, no one has figured out where it came from. While most historians have debunked the rock, now known as the Kensington Rune, as a hoax due to dating and inconsistencies with the Norse language of the time, the myth has persisted. But if it wasn't the Vikings, who did leave this mysterious rock? And what does it say? Mississippi, Deer Island's haunted treasure, and Singing River. The ghost of Deer Island originates from an old pirate story. The story says that back in the 1920s, two people were fishing on Deer Island when they heard rustling in the bushes, a noise they assumed was caused by wild hogs. Eventually, they decided to check it out and encountered a headless skeleton. They ran back to their boat, and the skeleton followed them all the way there. According to the pirate story, there was a ship that sailed into Biloxi Bay and buried their treasure on Deer Island. The crew decided to behead one of their own and left his body behind to guard their treasure. Like the Singing Beach, Mississippi's Pascagoula River has a tragic story that earned it the nickname, the Singing River. Residents have heard strange humming coming from the river. This hum is said to be the ghosts of the Pascagoula people who drowned themselves in the river instead of being taken as slaves by the Biloxi tribe. It is said that the Pascagoula sang their death song as they joined hands and drowned together. What's creepier, there is an image that was used as a stamp to commemorate the horrible mass suicide. Missouri, Bubblehead Road, and Momo, the Missouri Monster. Momo is Missouri's version of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. He's been said to have terrible body odor, a pumpkin-shaped head, and an appetite for dogs. In 1968, Momo reportedly tried to abduct a 4-year-old boy, though no evidence has ever been found. Actually named Carica Road, the people of St. Louis bestowed the nickname to the scary road because not only is it dark and heavily tree-lined, but there are also said to be bubbleheads that will chase you should you get too close. No one is quite sure how the bubbleheads got such large, deformed heads, but trespassers who dare trespass say they encounter beings that chase them at night. No trespassing signs are all about to lend a little more truth to the fact that you are simply not wanted anywhere in this area of northern St. Louis. Montana, the story of Sacrifice Cliff and the girl of Ghost Bear Canyon. Hunters and hikers in the canyon outside Bozeman, Montana, have reported seeing a girl roaming in the woods. Women need to be especially wary, as she is said to lure females into the woods. Perhaps she seeks a mother. But she is not the only spirit spotted there. During snowstorms, people have spotted a fur trapper or a cowboy struggling. Since this only happens during storms, people think it is the ghost of someone who froze to death in the canyon. The story of Sacrifice Cliff comes from an old Native American legend. Two members of the Crow tribe arrived in their village from a trip to find that almost everyone there had been infected with smallpox and died. So heartbroken about the loss of their loved ones, the two decided to blindfold their horses and ride off the cliff to join the tribe on the other side. Sacrifice Cliff is visible from almost anywhere in Billings, so it's sad and a bit spooky to think about this story while the cliff is looming over the entire city. Nebraska. Hatchet House and Heartbeat Bridge, and the Poison Girl at Centennial Hall. When Insider chose the most haunted place in each state, Centennial Hall was a no-brainer. People claim that there are multiple ghosts roaming the halls. But the creepiest story of Centennial Hall originates in the 1940s, when it used to be a high school. The story says that a student was playing her clarinet, suffered a heart attack and died because her reed had been poisoned. Now, people claim to feel cold spots, hear disembodied music, and to have witnessed an empty rocking chair starting to rock. It may look like an unassuming old schoolhouse in Papillion, Nebraska, save for the chilling tale of the killer teacher. Legend has it that a teacher at the Porter School in the early 1900s went mad. One by one, she killed each of her 30 students. Some say she decapitated them, and then proceeded to carve out their hearts. Nearby, the teacher tossed their hearts at what is now dubbed Heartbeat Bridge, because some say they hear the hearts beating. And for those who get near the old schoolhouse, the feeling of evil surrounds them. Nevada. Pyramid Lake's mermaid and water babies, and the truth about Area 51. There is perhaps no urban legend, myth, or conspiracy theory more famous than Nevada's Area 51, a mysterious government facility that is rumored to be associated with aliens. The U.S. government officially states that Area 51 is classified due to national security, which only fuels the fire. The secrecy surrounding Area 51 is what makes it inherently creepy, and with the government admitting to a program investing UFOs, the theories about what's actually going on inside continue to seem more plausible. Don't go swimming in Pyramid Lake near Elko, Nevada, anytime soon. The lake has two frightening legends that will make you want to stay far away from its shores. The first involves deformed babies. Rumor has it, the Paiute tribe knew babies with deformities would weigh heavy on its survival and toss their unwanted babies into the lake. Not only are there remains of babies in the lake, but there are also angry spirits known to pull people right off their boats to drown them in revenge. If that wasn't bad enough, there is also a mermaid who drowned swimmers in the lake. It is said she, a member of the Paiute tribe as well, was banished. She too gets her revenge by taking people down into the depths of the lake. Either way, drowning seems to be the common thread, and you should stay away. New Hampshire. the Witch of Hampton, Goody Cole, and the Wood Devils. So far into the north of New Hampshire that the woods cross in Canada, you may get the sense you are being watched. It's not Bigfoot, it's a wood devil, more than 7 feet tall and extremely slim. These fast-moving entities are said to hide behind trees. First spotted around the early 1900s. The last spotting was in 2004, when 2 men hunting encountered one that must have been frightened because it gave off a high-pitched yell. Eunice Goody Cole was the only woman in New Hampshire history to be tried for witchcraft, multiple times. Her first charge was in 1656, and she was charged again in 1671. When she died and her body was recovered, the townspeople were rumored to have staked her through the heart to prevent her from haunting their town. People continue to blame Goody Cole for the misfortunes of Hampton citizens for the past 300 years. For example, a boat full of Hampton residents overturned, and everyone on board drowned, even though they were in swimming distance of shore. People blame Goody Cole for the crash and for cursing the passengers by having them forget how to swim. New Jersey, the Jersey Devil, and Clinton Road. The story of the Jersey Devil has been around since the 1700s. The legend states that a woman named Mother Leeds became pregnant with her 13th child and said, "Let this one be a or the devil." Once the child was born, it grew hooves, wings, horns, and a tail. Now, the monster has been spotted periodically throughout history in the Pine Barrens regions of New Jersey. The state has embraced the legend so much that they named their hockey team after it. Another stretch of road to avoid can be found near West Milford. The 10-mile Clinton Road stretch has been the source of many a fright for more than 100 years. Considered the most haunted of America's haunted roads, ghosts, devil worshippers, the Ku Klux Klan, and even mobsters disposing of dead bodies have been spotted here in the dead of night. One of the biggest legends is the boy ghost who haunts the bridge near Dead Man's Curve. It is said the boy drowned below, and you can summon him by dropping a coin in the water. He will return your coin to the bridge or the road by morning. He will also give you a shove if you get too close to the edge of the bridge. But don't worry, he just wants to make sure you stay safe. New Mexico, La Malorda, and UFOs of New Mexico. La Malorda, which translates to the evil hour, is an entity that you don't want to run into on a dark road. Legend says that at first, it appears as a ball of black energy, constantly moving and changing its size and shape. If you look at it, it will drive you insane and will slowly kill you. At other times, it appears as a scary-looking woman. It's said that if you see her at a crossroads, you or someone in your family will die. For decades, people have believed UFOs crashed in the desert around New Mexico, and that the U.S. government has a top-secret base where they keep the remains of alien beings and their flying saucers in what is known as Area 51. Naysayers argue that this began with a high-altitude balloon crash in 1947, in which a photo of the crash looks like a spaceship. But conspiracy theorists say there are other incidents and believe the government is hiding something from us all. The truth is out there. New York, the Amityville House, and Cropsey. The story of Cropsey has many iterations, but it generally tells the story of a man who stalked a sleepaway camp, psychiatric facility, and children's hospital, had a hook for a hand, and killed children who were wandering alone at night. Every single person who went to camp in upstate New York has heard about Cropsey. Things took a more sinister turn when a documentary posited that Cropsey was actually real, a convicted child kidnapper named Andre Rand. In 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot his parents, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, as they slept in their home in Amityville, New York on Long Island. The gruesome tale wound up inspiring a book and countless movies about that house that held spirits so evil they corrupted Ronald and caused him to slay his family. This followed only after George and Kathy Lutz moved into the house in 1976. Within a month, they left that house, telling reporters they felt a very strong force that told them to leave. Today, the house is considered one of the most haunted homes in the nation, and the movies continue to inspire thoughts that it is a gateway to hell. North Carolina, the Beast of Bladenboro, and the Ghost Ship. In the 1950s, multiple dogs were found dead and drained of blood in the North Carolina town of Bladenboro. People believed that there was a vampiric beast in the woods, and they tried to hunt the animal. Today, the city of Bladenboro has embraced its history, and residents actually hold a Beast Fest every year. While some people are convinced the beast was probably a particularly large bobcat, it's never been confirmed exactly what was stalking their town. In 1921, the Carroll A. Deering was found aground on the Cape Hatteras National Seashore in North Carolina. Many ships have crashed into the rocks of Diamond Shoals and have sunken off the coast of the Outer Banks. But the Carroll A. Deering was unique. It had no crew. The ship, with a crew of 11, was seen off the coast on January 29th, reporting to another ship that it had lost its anchors. The ship was spotted on the rocks 2 days later without its lifeboats. When boarded, it was discovered the crew, all their personal belongings, navigational equipment, and the anchors were all gone. Some say dinner was even prepared and left cooking. The FBI investigated the ship, and there has never been a trace of the crew or any of the missing items found to this day. Theories include pirates and the nearby Bermuda Triangle as reasons for the disappearances. North Dakota, White Lady Lane, and Minnewashi. Anyone knows General Custer haunts the land, but only those in North Dakota know about the legendary Minnewashi. This river monster of the Missouri River is covered in bison-like fur of red and travels upstream, breaking the ice of the river. While the story seems harmless, it is told a person who comes across the Minnewashi will go insane and die. The story of White Lady Lane is a tragic one. The legend states that a young woman became pregnant out of wedlock, and her religious parents forced her to marry the father. The baby ended up dying after their wedding. The girl, so upset about her baby and her forced marriage, hanged herself from a bridge in her wedding dress. Locals claim to still see her ghost hanging from the bridge. Ohio, Melonheads, and the Werewolf of Defiance. During the summer of 1972, the people of Defiance claimed they were being terrorized by a werewolf. The sightings always happened at night, generally by the train tracks. A couple of women said it would try to get into their houses by rattling the doorknobs. The animal was said to be huge, hairy, and dressed in rags. But after summer ended, the beast disappeared, never to be heard from again. But the story still lingers. In Kirtland, Ohio, Dr. Crow performed scientific experiments on children who lived in an orphanage. No evidence of this doctor exists, but the story continues to spread. In the tale, the children lost their hair and began to mutate. Dr. Crow also injected fluid into their brains, causing their heads to become larger than normal. The children finally had enough, and in an uprising, murdered Dr. Crow and burned down the orphanage. Now, the woods of Ohio are filled with these mutated children who live in the wild and have become cannibals. Oklahoma, the mysterious shaman's portal and the hex house. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, another house has made a few too many people experience some shudder-worthy moments. The home of Carol Ann Smith was discovered to be the home of religious slaves, found by police living in cages in the dark basement in hypnotic states in 1944. Turns out, Smith earned a living cashing in on the life insurance policies of those she kept locked up, as well as others not found. She was never charged with murder, but fled the state. The home was eventually torn down, but they say the basement is intact beneath the parking lot. Smith's house inspired the Hex House, a haunted attraction open during the Halloween season. The mysterious occurrences in Beaver Dunes Park have been attributed to the fact that it was built upon ancient Native American burial grounds, which is why it's called the Shaman's Portal. It's also known as the Oklahoma Bermuda Triangle. Mysterious things have happened in the park, starting with the Spanish conquistadors who went missing while searching for gold in the 1500s. Since then, paranormal activity seekers flocked to the dunes. Some people claim that a UFO crashed there, and a group in the 90s who tested the soil said it was abnormal. Oregon, the family that never left, and the Bandage Man of Canyon Beach. The Bandage Man is the American version of a mummy. He is rumored to be the ghost of a logger who died in a sawmill accident, and now terrorizes teenagers who hang out at a deserted area of a highway near Canyon Beach. Stories say that he knocks on car windows to try and get in, and smells really, really bad. Captain George Flavel and his family resided in an elegant mansion in Astoria, Oregon. Perhaps they loved their 1886 home so much, they decided never to leave it, even in death. Now a museum, staff of the museum have heard ghostly conversations and music being played, and have even seen the ghosts of a man and a woman. But that's not all. The captain's grandson, Harvey Flavel, went on to have a number of spooky events of his own, including cornering his mother, axe in hand. They called him Hatchet Harry after that. He was eventually charged with attempted murder and found guilty of assault in 1985. Pennsylvania, The Ghost Town on Fire, and The Bus to Nowhere. In Philadelphia, there's rumored to be a bus that doesn't have an end destination. The story says that the bus only picks up passengers that are at their lowest moments who need to get away from their problems. Once the passenger is ready to face the world, they can get off the bus. But the passenger has no idea how long they've been on the bus for. It could have been hours, days, or even years. Mining in the mountains of eastern Pennsylvania is not unusual. An ever-burning mining town, however, is. Enter Centralia. The coal mining town was once a thriving community of 1,500 residents when a fire in the coal mines in 1962 set off an unstoppable fire beneath the ground. No one knows how the fire started, but the eventual sinkhole and toxic gases caused by what was taking place underground forced the residents to flee. Just 5 residents remained in 2017. The underground fire continues to burn, and the area has become a popular oddity destination, with graffiti artists leaving their mark on the ghost town roads, aka Graffiti Highway. Rhode Island. The Devil's Footprints, and The Conjuring House. There is a rock on Devil's Foot Road that appears to show a normal human footprint and a cloven hoof. The story goes that a Native American woman murdered a white man and fled the scene of the crime. While running, she was stopped by another man. She cried out for the devil to save her. When the man admitted that he himself was the devil and stomped his feet on the ground to prove that he had a cloven hoof, which the rock still shows to this day. The Conjuring is another frightening movie based on true events. In the suburbs of Providence is a farmhouse known as the Old Arnold Estate. When the Perron family moved into the home in the 1970s with their 5 daughters, angry spirits made themselves known right away, including the former mistress of the house, Bathsheba, who had lived in the home in the 1800s. She's buried close to the house and was considered a witch in her time, accused of performing satanic rituals that included sacrificing a child. Ed and Lorraine Warren, characters in the movie and true-life investigators, were called in and, well, watch the movie and decide if the home's new owners are a bit nuts. They too claim to hear bumps in the night. South Carolina. The Boo Hag and the Death of Julia Laguerre. The name alone should be enough to make you want to avoid this mythical spirit said to live in South Carolina's Low Country. The Gullah blacks, similar to Creoles of this area, believe skinless beings will enter a house as you sleep, climb on your chest, suck out your breath, and then skin you and wear it like a coat to stay warm. Who exactly are Boo Hags? Those who are evil and not granted entry into heaven after death. You'll spot blue handprints with an eye in the center on houses across the Low Country to ward off these demonic beings. In the 1800s, the Laguerres were a well-to-do South Carolinian family that had homes on the mainland and on Edisto Island. The daughter, Julia, got sick, was pronounced dead, and was buried inside their family mausoleum. Years later, another member of the Laguerre family died, and when their tomb was opened up, the remains of Julia were found outside of her coffin. The story says that Julia had been in a coma and had woken up to try and escape her tomb, but sadly died. After the first reopening of the Laguerre Mausoleum, the door can't seem to stay shut. The Laguerres tried multiple different doors, but every single time, the door was found open. People believe that the ghost of Julia didn't want to be locked in that tomb any longer. South Dakota. Walking Sam in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and Sitka Hollow. The Sioux of South Dakota gave Sitka Hollow its name, which means evil to ward others away. That's because this is where water runs red, believed to be the spirits of Sioux ancestors. Trees are said to glow when swamps bubble. It's now a state park. The government didn't heed the warning, and visitors have reported seeing Native American spirits and hearing chanting and beating of drums. Purportedly over 7 feet tall and very slim, Walking Sam is said to appear on the streets of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation at night, and he tries to convince teenagers to take their own lives. Whether or not Walking Sam is real, something tragic is going on at the reservation. From December 2014 to May 2015, there were 103 suicide attempts at Pine Ridge. Tennessee. The boy in the bathroom at Pine Haven School, and Old Green Eyes. Near the Tennessee-Georgia border, one of the Civil War's bloodiest battles took place near Snodgrass Hill. Known as the Battle of Chickamauga, the blood spilled here is said to have lured a green-eyed beast. Then again, other versions of the story have it that the beast was here well before the battle. Still, another story claims a green-eyed soldier died here. No matter who it is, sightings of glowing green eyes by both visitors and park rangers at Chickamauga National Park have confirmed there is something here. Frightened by the glowing green, drivers have even crashed cars here, proving this being isn't one to be messed with. The Pine Haven School, located in Jamestown, is old and abandoned and is said to be haunted. A tragic story supposedly took place there, where a boy was cornered by a group of bullies in the bathroom and shoved into a mirror, which shattered and took his life. To avoid getting caught committing murder, the bullies decided to bury the body underneath the floorboards. Today, people say that if you go inside the school, you can see the reflection of the boy if you look in the mirror. Texas. The Candy Lady and El Chupacabra. Found not only in Texas, but also Mexico, Puerto Rico, and South America, El Chupacabra has been deemed the Bigfoot of Latino culture by CNN. The hairless, dog-like beast attacks farm animals and drains their blood. There have been various sightings, photos, and even remains of unidentified animals, but no one has yet been able to identify what the El Chupacabra really looks like. In the early 1900s, children in an unnamed rural town in Texas started to go missing, and the residents blamed it on the Candy Lady. The story says that she would go around leaving candy on children's windows, and eventually she'd lure the kids out with notes attached, promising more candy. The story picked up steam when a farmer allegedly found rotten teeth on his farm, and later found the body of a boy with his pockets stuffed with candy. While little is known about the origin of this story, some have speculated that the Candy Lady was real and that her name was Clara Crane. Utah. The Curse of the Escalante Petrified Forest, and the old pump house in Benjamin. A pump house once used to irrigate farms has been said to have lights coming from the house at night. Yet, it is abandoned and doesn't have electricity. The rumor is 2 men working alone one night were killed in the machinery, and they may be the voices heard coming from the pump house when further inspection proves it to be empty. While it is illegal to take anything from the Escalante Petrified Forest State Park, there is a legend that says that anyone who takes pieces of petrified wood from the park will be cursed with bad luck, sickness, and accidents. Park manager Kendall Farnsworth stated in 2014 that he gets about a dozen packages every year containing a piece of wood from the park, and an apologetic letter detailing the sender's misfortunes. Vermont. Black Agnes and the Frozen People. First appearing in a diary that was published in the late 1800s, the legend of the hibernating old people recounts the tale of a poor family outside the Montpelier who couldn't afford to feed and clothe the oldest members of their family, so they froze the people and buried them. According to the tale, when spring rolled around, the elders thawed out and were just fine. The statue in Greenmount Cemetery in Montpelier is creepy enough without hearing the stories. It is that of Thanatos, or death in Greek mythology. Presiding over the tomb of Montpelier businessman John Hubbard, who died in 1899, his wealth was showcased with a grand monument. Over time, Thanatos was nicknamed Black Agnes, and it is said her eyes glow red at night. But for those who are willing to tempt fate, just take a seat in Agnes's lap. Or maybe don't, because locals say anyone who does will die within 7 days of doing so. Virginia. Here are 2 stories of the same urban legend. The Bunny Man. Avoid the bridge beneath Colchester Road in Clifton, Virginia on Halloween night. It is here where the Bunny Man claims his victims at midnight. He gets his name for stringing up his victims like rabbits during a hunt, but he also has a name, Douglas Griffin. When an asylum near the bridge was closed and the patients were being relocated, the bus they were riding crashed and one patient was never found. Yep, it was Griffin. After weeks passed, the remains of dead rabbits began appearing in the woods. Surely an escapee finding a way to survive. Then, one day, his tastes changed when a group of kids were hanging around the bridge on Halloween night. The Bunny Man strung them up like rabbits and gutted them. And if you're here on All Hallows Eve, the same fate could happen to you. The Bunny Man's legend starts with what every good urban legend starts with, an insane asylum. The people of Clifton were so up in arms about the asylum that they were able to get all the patients transferred. The patients were being moved on bus that crashed, and the police were able to catch all of the patients except one, the Bunny Man. According to the tale, the Bunny Man lived in the woods and sustained himself on woodland creatures like bunnies, but eventually he attacked humans. Some people reported being attacked by a man with a hatchet. Other tales say that groups of teens would see a bright light and then would wind up dead and strung up over the bridge. Washington, the 13 Steps to Hell, and Bigfoot. Bigfoot is an internationally recognizable name and has been spotted all over the country. But Bigfoot has been spotted the most in Washington state. Bigfoot is essentially a gigantic ape-like creature who is either a ferocious beast who attacks loggers and hikers, or a gentle giant who wants to be left alone. Either way, there's something creepy about an undiscovered species of animal running around the Pacific Northwest evading capture. In Maltby Cemetery in Bothell, Washington, there were once 13 steps that descended into the tomb of a wealthy family. What could be wrong with that? Of course, the number 13 has long been associated with bad things, and as soon as area teens started daring each other to do silly things in the cemetery, the rumor started. Legend has it, if you descended down the stairs, each step gave you a glimpse further into hell. So, many have visited the cemetery to get a peek that the steps have now been bulldozed, yet this hasn't deterred midnight visitors. West Virginia. The Mothman. Here are two different variations. In Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a mysterious man-sized moth creature was frequently spotted in 1966 and 1967. The man could fly with its wings, and numerous reports said he had eyes that glowed red. Writers began to spread the tale, including John Keel, who wrote The Mothman Prophecies. The book tied the Mothman to supernatural events, including prophesizing the collapse on the Silver Bridge. A movie was made in 2002. The people of Point Pleasant have embraced their Mothman and hold an annual festival in his honor. In 1966, stories say that West Virginia was visited by an insectoid flying creature with bright red eyes who resembled both a moth and a man. He was spotted flying around the town of Point Pleasant, along with shining lights and the Men in Black. Mothman's origins have been claimed as supernatural, alien, or government experiment gone wrong. But Point Pleasant has embraced the monster, erecting a statue, creating a museum, and even dedicating a festival to him alone. In 2002, a film starring Richard Gere called The Mothman Prophecies was released. Wisconsin. The Bleeding Tombstone and Boy Scout Lane. The story of what exactly happened at Boy Scout Lane varies, but they all end with the same conclusion: a group of Boy Scouts dead on the road. In some stories, there was a bus crash with no survivors, or they were murdered by their bus driver, or they just mysteriously vanished into the woods one by one. Visitors have reported seeing a swinging body in the trees, feeling as though they were being watched, and finding child-sized handprints. Kate Blood had an unfortunate name, along with an untimely death of tuberculosis at age 23. Although she had a child with her husband, he remarried, and Kate's grave is located away from his family, which led to many stories about the lonely tomb. Depending on the story, Kate murdered her husband or had numerous affairs and was killed by her husband. People claim to have seen a ghost near the Appleton, Wisconsin grave in Riverside Cemetery, and say that on the nights when a full moon shines, blood seeps from the tombstone. Wyoming. Devil's Tower and the Palette River Ship of Death. There's no scientific consensus on why Devil's Rock looks the way it does, but one Native American creation story attributes the landmark shape to a tragedy. According to the story, a large group of Cheyenne girls were attacked and killed by a bear. Two escaped and found help from two boys. who convinced the girls to act as bait. They climbed to the top of the tower, and the bear tried to follow. The boys shot arrows at the bear, and it finally gave up, leaving scratches all the way down the rock as it slid down. You definitely don't want to see the death ship that appears on the Platte River between Torregon and Alcova, Wyoming. Those who see it will experience death on the very same day. The phantom ship is said to arrive with fog. The ship and its ghost crew are covered in frost, overlooking a corpse they are about to toss into the river. When they step back from the corpse, the person revealed is that who will die. The ship was first spotted in 1862 by Leon Weber, who was shown the face of his fiancée as the corpse. She died the same day. And that, dear listeners, is the end of these creepy urban myths from all 50 states here in the U.S. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you kindly. If you are awake, I hope you have enjoyed these awesome creepy urban myths. With that being said, until next time, I'll read to you soon. Have a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good